problem with me getting back into these build a six packs again is that usually I fill them up with stuff that I want to review for you guys. And the problem with that is that I'm going to get so far ahead. I mean, by the end of this build a six pack, these videos should be, I think, into April. And I'm recording this in February right now, so that kind of gives you an idea. I know some podcasters do that, not necessarily to this extent usually, but I want to review these beers. I could just, open up the bottle and say, oh, that's good, I want to review it, and go get another bottle. But I think it's actually kind of more fun when I'm cracking open a bottle here for the first time, I would say sight unseen, but taste untasted, if that makes sense. I want to go in really not knowing what I'm getting into. So this one, I'm really not sure what I'm getting into. But it's one I saw on Instagram recently and didn't think I was actually going to find it because I haven't had a lot of luck finding some of the new Founders stuff. But this is, from Founders, Frootwood. It is a cherry ale aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. You ever thought of a cherry ale aged in bourbon barrels? As it's described in the back here, we took a crisp, light-bodied cherry ale and hid it away in oak barrels that have held both bourbon and maple syrup. After a lengthy stint, it emerged as a changed beer, blanketed in notes of warm vanilla and earthy sweetness. The wood proves itself the star of this beer, adding depth and taming the tart cherry, while the maple imposes a velvety texture that lingers for not a moment too long. The interesting thing about this is it's only 8% ABV. Typically, when you get your bourbon barrel beers, you're expecting it up, higher in there, like in the 10s, maybe 11s, things like that. So this one could be kind of interesting. It was bottled at the end of December, so still, relatively new. But I'm very curious about this one because I love a good cherry ale, cherry wheat, things like that. Never thought about doing a bourbon barrel aging with it. So, and hey, look at this. It's back-to-back red beers. If you remember the red velvet from Ballast Point last time. This one's not quite as deep red, but it's still pretty nice there. Definitely getting a bourbon aroma off of that, which is unexpected. Well, for a cherry beer, of course. I like that. The bourbon barrel flavor and the maple flavor hit you first. So you're almost expecting that roastiness of a stout to come afterwards, and then that tart cherry ends up hitting you. That is really interesting. Something I would like to try more of. If I had one complaint with this, it's that the cherry that you may initially taste as you're getting the bourbon barrel flavor and the maple flavor almost comes across as a little medicinal. But really, once you get the strength of the bourbon barrel, the strength of the maple, and then it moves on to that actual tart cherry, that medicinal kind of quality dissipates a bit. Yeah, that initial tartness that hits that split second right before you get everything else. That's a little bothersome, but I can overlook that because as it progresses through everything else, it's actually pretty damn good. Yeah, you know what? I know sometimes if you drink it a little bit differently, like that last sip, I didn't get the medicinal. And I think maybe because I wasn't, sometimes if you don't, depending on how you drink the beer, if you're kind of breathing at the same time, if you're like inhaling through your nose, you're trying to get the aroma and the taste at the same time. I know everything's connected, but you can pick up things a little bit differently that way. And doing it the way I just did it before, it actually muted that medicinal quality to it. Almost like if I kind of just like block my nose, it actually helps that there. So if I was to say one negative thing about it, it would be that initial medicinal cherry quality. Everything else nails it though. The bourbon flavor, the maple flavor, and then the tart cherry that comes after those two. So, very, very interesting beer. I'd like to see Founders try a little bit more, mixing it up with their fruit beers and trying to do some different things with that, because you can create some amazing flavors with that. I mean, some fruit beers I've had, you'd be astounded as to what flavor profiles they can create. So this is Frootwood from Founders, 8% ABV, a cherry ale aged in maple syrup bourbon barrels. Check it out. With that, I'll see you for the next review.